Welcome back to the Sports Mag Zone, and it's time to talk about the CONCACAF Gold Cup, and in particular Group D, where favourites Canada were in for a surprise on Tuesday night. Here's Gerard Marsili with a recap.
All eyes on Group D favourites Canada, the tournament co-hosts, opening in Toronto against Guadeloupe. The Canadians starting as heavy favourites, but the Guada boys had other ideas. Thierry Ambrose with a brilliant bit of skill to send the visitors ahead in the 23rd minute. And the Canadians had to wait until the second half to find the equaliser. Lucas Cavallini slotted home his 19th international goal, assisted by Junior Hoylett's clever outside foot pass. Canada then stepped up the tempo and were rewarded with a go-ahead goal in the 70th minute. Goalkeeper Davy Royard undone by the boot of his own defender, Medellina. And it seemed Canada were on course for all 3 points, but in a stunning turn of events, an own goal at the other end. Jason Russell rode dejected as Guadeloupe celebrated a share of the points with a 2-2 draw. Here's the Canadian head coach, John Herdman.
And we're going to grow through this tournament. I mean, last 5 minutes, we should be sealing that up. I'm not sure we need it to even put ourselves in that position, but that's football. And to be fair to them, they were always in the game. They had that little bit of quality, we knew that.
Second Group D game of the night, Guatemala taking on Cuba at the Drive Pink Stadium in Miami. Guatemala with the perfect chance to take the lead from the penalty spot, but substitute Darwin Lum would be denied by a combination of Nicholas Hagen and the goalpost in first half stoppage time. But Lum would redeem himself, eventually scoring the game's lone goal, a well-taken right-footed strike in the 48th minute. And that's the way it would end, Guatemala securing all 3 points to take the early lead in Group D.
Yeah, there you have it. A somewhat surprising start to Group D. Guatemala currently leading on 3 points. Canada and Guadeloupe both have 1 point, with Cuba sitting at the foot, yet to get off the mark. In some ways, we should not be surprised, Lance, because of the number of first-choice players that the Canadians are missing coming into this CONCACAF Gold Cup. When you look at a squad that is missing Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin is not there, Buchanan is not there, Alistair Johnston is not there, Atiba Hutchinson, one of their most capped players, not in the setup as well. A lot of quality players missing from this Canada outfit. Still have to give Guadeloupe credit for pushing them all the way and getting the point, but when you're missing so many first choice players in a tournament like this, you just never know what will happen.
Yeah, and the fact is that Guadeloupe, teams like Guadeloupe and Martinique from time to time will present pretty strong opposition for you, because a lot of their players play in the French leagues and so on. So from that standpoint, Guadeloupe and Martinique are not teams that you just overlook just like that. Having said that, I think the Canadian setup at the moment, even without their key players, would be disappointed at not being able to get 3 points from this fixture.
Yeah, the coach did point out that they will grow into the tournament, which is in itself always important. Sometimes you don't want to get off to too hot a start and then cool down when you get to the major part of the tournament, the knockout phase of the tournament. But with a start like this, no guarantees that they will get there. But I'm also thinking that when teams like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago look at what is to come, because the quarterfinal matchups draw groups A and D. So the winner from Group A, that's the group with Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, the United States, St. Kitts and Nevis, the winner from that group will play the runner-up from Group D, and the winner from Group D will play the runner-up from Group A. So either Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago would be looking on and thinking to themselves, an understrength Canadian squad, Guatemala, Guadeloupe, Cuba, either of them that gets through, we would fancy our chances against a team like that. And so a semi-final place is looking quite likely if you can get out of Group A.
Yeah, that's for sure. Having seen a couple of days now of the prelims or the group stages of the competition, outside of Mexico, I don't think there is any other team that overly impressed us. So the point that you've made about the projection of where the teams would fall if they get through the group stages, looks pretty good for the Caribbean teams. If they surpass the group stage and get into the knockout phase, their prospects of getting into the deeper stages of the competition very high. It's like you look at tennis draw and you're not seeing, key players in your half of the draw to really stop you. So from that standpoint, your point is taken, Ricardo.
Yeah, I must admit that I was quite impressed with Panama, but a large part of that is because of how they play. They have a system. They're difficult to break down. They did concede late against Costa Rica, but that was a good win to start the tournament. And I always think that in these tournaments, Panama can be very difficult to beat, and I expect them to be difficult to beat in this tournament. But you're also right, Lance. There is no doubt, based on the teams we have seen so far, that the Mexicans have been the most impressive.
Yes.
And given having seen the teams, we would have to say that they are early favourites for this CONCACAF Gold Cup title, favourites to dethrone the United States of America. All right, before we shift away from Group D, Canadian soccer has been in the spotlight recently after the body's interim general secretary, Jason DeVos, suggested it may have to consider filing for bankruptcy protection. Here's what he said. We are in a real struggle. It's not imminent, but we need to explore what bankruptcy entails and how it might affect our organization. We don't have enough revenue coming in for the programs that need to be run, and that includes everything from grassroots coach education and referee development to youth national teams and our senior men's and women's teams. Bankruptcy has been discussed, but not in the sense of this is a strategy or this is something that we're looking at. It's been discussed more from my own perspective to learn about it. It is absolutely the last option that I want to consider or even think about. But I would be remiss if I didn't do my due diligence on this. How do you see this one, Lance? First of all, I must admit, slightly surprised to see a nation like Canada, with the type of resources that they have, struggling financially to the point that bankruptcy is being considered. But having said that, a situation is before us.
Yeah, I have to agree with you that that was my first impression when I saw the story, that it's a little bit surprising. We know that football is not a major sport in the Canadian culture. But as you said, the resources they have for their sports program overall, far exceeds a lot of other countries that we can think of. And the fact that the current CONCACAF president and FIFA vice president, Montagliani, is a Canadian and a former president of the Canadian Football Association, must be a little embarrassing from his standpoint as a major football figure globally to be experiencing that in his own country.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm saying major countries can't struggle financially, but when the struggle is to the point that you're now talking about the possibility of not being able to play friendly matches later this year. We also saw a situation where Voss was talking about travel arrangements, that they wouldn't be able to fly the team business class on short flights, and that they would have to travel economy class on short flights, and that they would only get to travel business class on significantly longer flights. So there is a massive issue. It is good, though, that he has said it's not that they are considering bankruptcy protection at this stage of the game, but it's for his own knowledge base to understand that if it ever gets there, exactly what they would need to do and how it would affect the organization. But yeah, unfortunate for Canadian soccer, but as you pointed out, Lance, it's not one of the major sports in Canada. But again, generally, given the type of funding that they put into their sports programs, it is slightly surprising. We take a break. We'll be back with more on the Sports Bank Zone. We talk the Reggae Boys versus Trinidad and Tobago Gold Cup group action coming up tonight.